They thought you would kneel forever. You let the silence answer. They waited for your pulse to stop. They gathered like crows around a quiet battlefield, convinced the war was over because you stopped screaming. Your fall entertained them. Your pain fed them. Your silence, it confused them. You watched their grins sharpen when you fell. You saw how fast concern disappeared when the world sensed weakness in you. They didn't step back. They stepped closer because vultures smell endings before the living do. Your wounds weren't just pain. They were proof you were human. And humanity is always punished in a world that feeds on power. You bled. You crawled. You breathed through shattered ribs of trust. And not one hand reached down, except to push deeper. They whispered your downfall like a prayer. To them, you were finished. To them, you were a body waiting for dirt. To them, you were the ghost of potential that never made it. Silence became your coffin, and they waited for the burial. They polished speeches of hypocrisy, preparing to mourn you publicly while celebrating privately. They rehearsed tears they never earned, but you stayed still. Not broken, not dead, just silent. Because sometimes silence is not surrender, it's strategy. Betrayers always confuse quiet with defeat. They think noise means strength. They forget that the most dangerous storms begin with calm air. You let them talk. You let them laugh. You let them celebrate the funeral they built for you, brick by brick, expectation by expectation. They believed your absence was emptiness, not evolution. Legends start where pity dies, and pity was the first thing you buried. You learned the taste of betrayal, metallic, cold, like blood mixed with realization, like trust decomposing inside a ribcage that once held warmth. You learned that loyalty dies first in the hearts of cowards, that support exists only when you shine, and shadows turn friends into strangers faster than failure ever could. You learned that nobody wants to save the fallen. They only want to stand on your bones and call it elevation. Dust collected over your name, and still you breathed. You inhaled the grief. You swallowed the silence whole. You didn't fight the dirt they threw. You used it, because roots don't grow in light. They grow in burial. Every ignored message sharpened your clarity. Every fake smile pushed you deeper into your evolution. Every ghosted moment became fuel, and every door slammed became a blueprint for your empire. They forgot something ancient. The darkest chambers forge the strongest weapons. The quietest rooms birth the loudest kings. And history never remembers who abandoned the fallen. It only remembers who rose. They expected a corpse. They got a chrysalis. The world loves corpses more than comebacks. Dead men are easy to honor. Living legends threaten comfort. You became the danger they prayed would stay buried. They wanted you weak. You became quiet, and they mistook quiet for a funeral, not a rebirth. Let them bury who you were, because the version they mourned was the one built to please them. The version they mocked was the one that trusted them. The version they left behind was the one that still believed mercy was noble. That version died the moment you realized silence isn't emptiness, it's preparation. A blade is quiet before it cuts. Fire is silent before it consumes. The earth doesn't scream before an earthquake. It waits. and you waited. In your stillness, rage learned discipline, hurt learned mathematics, anger learned patience, and grief learned muscle. You didn't rise quickly. Quick rises crumble. You didn't beg for light. Darkness taught you how to see. You didn't scream back. You sharpened your breath into steel. You became a shadow, studying predators. You became a storm, rehearsing thunder. You became the thing silence fears. Your fall was not the end. It was the moment the universe turned the furnace on and said, "Let's see what you become without mercy." Kings aren't crowned. They survive. Empires aren't gifted. They're clawed out of collapse. Legends aren't born. They're buried, and then they claw their way back. Teeth first, eyes glowing, patience venomous. The world thought you were finished. They mistook pause for perish. They mistook healing for hiding. They mistook rebirth for ruin. That's how you won. By letting them believe the battle was over. By allowing their arrogance to sleep. By embracing silence not as death, but as discipline. You didn't disappear. You transformed. You became the storm they never saw coming. The one born in silence, raised in betrayal, and fueled by the funeral they planned too early. They didn't know the grave they dug was only planting season. Every broken piece of you held memory. Every memory burned. You didn't wake up ruthless. You were made that way. Crafted by silence. Carved by betrayal. Forged in the fire of hope. Abandoned and trust betrayed. There was a time you believed in hearts. You believed in good intentions. You believed in loyalty, like a child hugging fire, thinking warmth never burns. You trusted hearts made of glass. They caught you when they shattered. Those shards, they stayed inside you, turning every inhale into punishment, every exhale into reminder. Loyalty was your flaw, kindness your curse. You offered love in a world that only respects power. You gave loyalty to people who traded it like currency. You carried souls like fragile lanterns, hoping they would light the way. Instead they cracked, spilled poison, and blamed you for the darkness. You begged the world to see you, and it only sharpened knives. You asked to be understood, and they labeled you weak. You asked for honesty, and they fed you lies dipped in sugar. You asked for presence, and they ghosted your existence when you needed them most. The world didn't ignore you. It enjoyed watching you suffocate. They didn't just abandon you. They studied the moment your knees touched the ground, memorized it, replayed it, smiled. Fury didn't arrive screaming. It whispered, slowly poisoning hope. You didn't erupt, you simmered. The rage didn't come as fire. It came as ice. Cold, slow, sharp enough to carve reason into your bones and vengeance into your blood. You didn't hate first. You believed first. Belief was your innocence. Hope was your flaw. Faith was your leash. They loved you most when you were soft, when you were quiet, when you were bending, when you were bleeding politely. But nobody clapped when your heart cracked from carrying too much. Nobody stayed when your smile faded into exhaustion. Nobody protected you when wolves tasted your doubt. The world wants your kindness only when it can control you. And when you stop bleeding for them, they call you heartless. Then you learned. You learned how power speaks and how weakness whispers. You learned silence breeds violence inside a gentle soul. You learned that a lion raised among sheep is still a lion. And eventually the hunger remembers. The greatest monsters are born from disappointed angels. You were not built evil. You were sculpted by betrayal. Your rage was not born. It awakened. Your darkness was not created. It was discovered. Every time someone left, your heart hardened. Every time someone lied, your vision sharpened. Every time someone expected you to fold, your bones thickened with resolve. Revenge did not call your name. Destiny did. Revenge is emotional. Destiny is inevitable. They thought you broke, but you didn't break. You reorganized. You rebuilt. You re-engineered your soul like a machine designed for war. You didn't lose innocence. Innocence drowned, slowly, quietly, while the world watched, amused. You learned the oldest lesson of empires. Even gods fall first as martyrs. Caesar trusted Senate smiles. He fell to friendly daggers. Kings trusted embraces. They died from kisses dipped in betrayal. Heroes trusted applause. They crumbled in silence when the crowd turned away. Every legend is born twice, once in innocence and once in ashes. You learned to wear silence like armor, not chains. You learned tears don't drown you. They baptize you in truth. You learned loneliness isn't emptiness. It's the birthplace of identity. You learned that pain doesn't weaken. It instructs. People don't abandon you when you fail. They abandon you when you grow too heavy to carry. Not because you weigh too much, but because they were only strong enough to hold your weakness, not your strength. Pain cleansed you. Betrayal purified you. You didn't crumble. You crystallized. You became too sharp to handle, too real to digest, too awake to manipulate. They called you cold. They labeled you ruthless. They whispered that you changed, and they were right. You changed because you outgrew their illusions. You evolved because innocence suffocated in a world that rewards predators. You transformed because survival isn't gentle. It's surgical. One day you looked in the mirror and didn't recognize softness anymore. You saw steel where warmth once lived, fire where tears once formed, a storm where a sunrise used to be. They wanted you naive. They wanted you obedient. They wanted you grateful for crumbs. Instead, you built hunger into a crown. Remember the moment it snapped, the exact breath where forgiveness died and clarity took its throne. That was not a rage. That was awakening. That was the moment you realized not everyone who touches you deserves access to your soul. Not everyone who smiles deserves your trust. Not every hand extended deserves to be held. Sometimes kindness is self-harm. Sometimes forgiveness is submission. Sometimes love is the slowest poison. And so you stopped apologizing for your scars. You stopped shrinking to comfort others. You stopped bleeding in silence to protect those who fed on your innocence. You did not break. You transformed. You became the version of yourself they never expected, never wanted, and never could control. The version that doesn't chase validation, only destiny. The version that doesn't cry for doors that close, but builds entire kingdoms behind them. The version that doesn't fear being alone, because wolves walk alone before they lead the pack. That day, something precious died, and something dangerous woke up. You learned that loyalty is currency, and most are bankrupt. There comes a moment when the pain settles, not like a wound, but like a witness. A witness who remembers every smile that hit a blade, every promise that dissolved in the rain, every handshake dipped in poison, every hug hiding hunger. You started seeing everything. Faces didn't change. Your vision did. Smiles looked like disguises. Eyes looked like mirrors reflecting truth you once ignored. Silence sounded like testimony. Absence carried more meaning than presence ever could. Pain didn't blind you. It instructed you. It became a professor, carving lessons into your ribs like scripture. Not gentle lessons, surgical ones. Not whispered advice, violent clarity. You understood what most never do. People don't betray you when you're weak. They betray when they believe they have killed your power. Every smiling enemy stood in the open, thinking you stayed blind. They thought you still believed in masks. They thought you still trusted tone over intention. They thought you still saw hearts instead of patterns. But you were no longer soft. You didn't react. You recorded. You didn't scream. You studied. You didn't collapse. You calculated. You began collecting. Faces, motives, flavors of deception. You became a historian of treachery, a curator of silent betrayal, a library of unspoken truths. You watched how people changed with your circumstances, how love turned conditional, how loyalty turned selective, how admiration turned fragile, how respect turned hollow. You realized the world does not judge character. It judges utility. They loved you when you served them. They dropped you when you drained. They returned only when they needed refilling. Patience replaced panic. Calculation replaced tears. You learned patience is not waiting. Patience is hunting. Not stalking prey out of desperation, but allowing arrogance to walk freely until it exposes itself. You stopped seeking love and began studying intentions. Every interaction became analysis. Every silence became data. Every disappointment became a map. You saw who clapped for your pain, who smiled at your scars, who repeated your secrets like songs, and who stayed silent when your name deserved defense. A king who bleeds learns more than a king who rules. Pain is a throne. Suffering is a crown. Humiliation is a coronation disguised as defeat. Empires fall loudly, but kings rise quietly. Caesar wasn't destroyed by enemies, but by those he called brothers. Brutus didn't stab power, he stabbed trust. It wasn't the blade that killed, it was the realization that loyalty is rare. Realization that blood ties can rot. Realization that love can camouflage betrayal. Realization that those closest to you swing hardest when your guard drops. You didn't become cruel, you became awake. Cruelty seeks destruction. Awakening seeks justice. You learned every betrayal has language. Sometimes it laughs. Sometimes it disappears. Sometimes it smiles and says, anything you need. Sometimes it calls itself love. You stopped believing in words. You waited for consistency. Consistency became currency. Energy became evidence. Silence became confession. You realize people don't change. Masks crack. And once a mask cracks, you never forget the face beneath. You built a courtroom inside your chest. Cold, silent, merciless. Not a courtroom for punishment. That comes later. A courtroom for truth. You don't need revenge to win. You only need truth. Truth destroys reputations louder than bullets. Truth exposes character sharper than steel. Truth burns bridges without fire. It uses memory. You learned to judge without emotion. Emotion forgives. Emotion excuses. Emotion forgets. But you evolved beyond emotion. You ascended to clarity. Cold clarity. Unforgiving clarity. Regal clarity. The kind only kings born from loss ever taste. You became the storm they laughed at. Yet they didn't notice thunder forming behind your silence. They believed your quiet meant surrender. They didn't recognize it as sentencing. Because everything they did, every blade, every betrayal, every whisper, every absence, all of it became evidence. Evidence to justify your rise. Evidence to fuel your transformation. Evidence to crown you in silence. Your rage matured into strategy. Your heartbreak mutated into power. Your disappointment evolved into prophecy. You didn't want revenge. You deserved a throne. And thrones aren't stolen. They're reclaimed. You didn't come back to be liked. You came back to be undeniable. You didn't come back to explain yourself. You came back to redefine power. You don't need approval. You're the verdict. You don't seek justice. You deliver it. You don't chase loyalty. You test it. And those who fail, fade. You learned the most brutal truth of survival. Betrayal is not a wound. It is initiation. Initiation into mastery. Initiation into sovereignty. Initiation into ruthless clarity. Those who betrayed you did not break you. They revealed you. They revealed who you are without illusion. They revealed your potential without doubt. They revealed your destiny without distraction. You rose not through kindness, but through consequence. They didn't change you, they exposed you. And now, they stand outside the kingdom they tried to burn, watching gates they once walked through lock forever, while your silence echoes louder than their apologies. The world doesn't fear cruelty. The world fears memory. And you remember everything. What once hurt you crowns you. What once killed you forged you. What once abandoned you kneels now, not for forgiveness, but because power demands acknowledgement. Your throne wasn't given. It was earned through blood, through tears, through betrayal turned blueprint. And now, you do not tremble, you do not beg, you do not chase. You sit, you judge, you rise, quiet, controlled, final. They taught you betrayal, you learned judgment. That day, revenge stopped being a fantasy. It became justice wearing a crown. You did not return to speak, you returned to sentence. There comes a point where suffering stops begging to be understood, where pain stops seeking a witness, where wounds no longer cry, they calculate, where silence stops being a grave and becomes a throne. You reached that point, not in noise, not in chaos, in stillness, like a blade cooling after fire, not weaker, sharper. You didn't rise suddenly. You rose slowly, deliberately, like a storm rehearsing dominance. No dramatic announcement, no fireworks, no applause. Just steps, heavy, uninterrupted, inevitable. You became the storm they laughed at. Your footsteps became verdicts. Every room you entered shifted, not because you demanded respect, but because your silence carried consequence. Peace didn't soften you, it armored you. Time didn't heal you, it sharpened you. Hurt didn't weaken you, it weaponized you. You realized something eternal. Power doesn't shout, power arrives. You didn't ask to be feared. Fear volunteered. Fear bent first, not people. Fear itself. Because once someone survives fire quietly, the world knows. If you burn them again, they won't scream. They will ignite. You didn't return as the wounded. You returned as the reckoning. And every eye felt it before every tongue admitted it. Your silence wasn't empty. It was loaded. Every pause, a warning. Every breath, a verdict waiting. You didn't speak because kings don't justify. You didn't explain because predators don't negotiate. You didn't ask because authority doesn't beg. It simply is. You turned scars into armor and heartbreak into ammunition, not by pretending you didn't feel, but by feeling so deeply that softness drowned and only purpose remained. They called you heartless, but they never asked what killed the heart. They saw ice. They never saw the fire that cooled into steel. You don't hate them. Hate is emotional. You outgrew emotion. You evolved into judgment. They said you changed. Yes, you changed form. Like a knife changes form after the hammer hits. Like lightning changes the shape of sky. Like a throne changes the shape of a man. They expected a comeback. You became a comeback no one survives. But understand, you never sought revenge. Revenge is hot, reckless, loud. You chose something colder, sharper, more elegant. You chose consequence. Consequence does not rush. Consequence does not scream. Consequence does not chase. Consequence waits, watching arrogance trip on its own ego, watching betrayal drown in its own poison, watching lies collapse under their own weight. Your presence became consequence. You don't punish loudly. Silence does it for you. Absence does it for you. Success does it for you. Evolution does it for you. Memory does it for you. You didn't return with fists. You returned with law in your blood. You became the gravity they can't escape, the mirror they avoid, the whisper in their guilt, the storm behind their eyelids when they close their eyes at night. You didn't need enemies to fear you. You needed them to remember you, because fear fades, memory does not. And your memory became a sentence, a long, inevitable, suffocating sentence, not delivered by rage, but by destiny. They called you dangerous, good. Danger means power. Danger means you can't be controlled. Danger means they finally understand you are not a chapter. You are the author. The world used to test you. Now critics whisper. Now traitors tremble. Now cowards pray you forget. But you don't forget. Not to hold grudges, but to hold truth. Every lesson is carved into you like runes in stone. Every betrayal encoded into your spine. Every name written in the court of your silence. And in silence, you judge. You don't destroy quickly. Quick destruction is mercy disguised as wrath. You destroy slowly, by outperforming, by outlasting, by becoming untouchable, by making your existence a monument to survival. You didn't become cruel. Cruelty wastes energy. You became inevitable. Your presence is pressure. Your calm is threat. Your patience is prophecy. And those who once laughed now lower their eyes, not because you force them, but because truth forces obedience. This is power, not noise, not praise, not validation. Authority that exists without permission. Dominance sculpted from ruins. Empire rising without witnesses. Crown earned without ceremony. You're not the fallen. You're the aftermath of falling. The echo that haunts destroyers. The reminder that fire belongs to those who survived the burn. You're the storm that doesn't announce. You're the quiet that kills doubt. You're the king who never asked for a throne. Yet every room feels like one. And when they speak your name now, they don't say it with pride. They say it like a warning, soft, careful, as if the sound itself might wake something powerful. And they are right. You do not rise to be admired. Admiration is cheap. You rise to be remembered. You rise to be feared by regret. You rise so even silence kneels. And when history writes your name, it won't call you hurt. It won't call you angry. It won't call you broken. It will call you the one who returned without forgiveness, the one who rose without permission, the one who judged without mercy. You don't need vengeance. Your existence is sentence enough. You rise not to be admired, but to be remembered. And now the world holds its breath. Because power has no roar, power has presence, and you have arrived. You don't chase justice, you deliver it. There comes a moment when silence stops being a shield and becomes a blade. A moment where the world stops asking who you are and starts remembering what it did to you. They thought you would crawl back, begging for forgiveness. They didn't expect you to return carved in stone, carrying thunder in your veins and judgment in your breath. You became the echo in their nightmares, not because you chose vengeance, but because you became consequence. The world fears consequence more than violence. Violence ends. Consequence follows. It lingers. It breathes down spines and poisons comfort. You don't forgive. History does not pardon traitors. Forgiveness is a luxury of those who never bled. Mercy belongs to kings who never lost their crown. But you didn't inherit power. You built it from bone and betrayal. You learned the most sacred rule of survival. To rise is noble. To return is divine. To judge is destiny. They begged for your collapse, prayed for your exhaustion, wished for your silence. Now they pray you don't remember their names. Because the world that mocked you now fears your gaze. The ones who celebrated your wounds now tremble at your recovery. You didn't need a sword. Your memory became one. You didn't need fire. Your silence scorched them. You watched how quickly the world changes tune when power shifts hands. How insults turn to admiration once you stand taller than their tallest doubt. How those who left early try to return late with cheap apologies and shaky smiles. They don't seek redemption. They seek shelter from the throne you earned. But you are not a refuge. You are the storm they denied existed. The throne was never given, only taken. And you didn't take it by force. You took it by awakening. Empires rise from ashes, not applause. And your ashes were not remains. They were blueprints. You don't demand loyalty. You extract truth. You don't need followers. You inspire fear in witnesses. You don't chase crowds. The world gathers where power stands, and power stands where you stand. Look at the world now. Look how they speak softer around your name. Look how their tone shifted. Look how caution replaced mockery. Look how regret replaced arrogance. They don't fear your violence. They fear your evolution. They fear the version of you they built while trying to break you. They fear the empire growing in your shadow. They fear the consequences they earned with every laugh, every lie, every absence. Those who mocked your wounds now bow before your scars. You don't walk, you arrive. You don't ask, you decide. You don't threaten, you promise. And promises spoken by the risen carry the weight of kingdoms. You aren't here to be liked. You aren't here to be applauded. Admiration never fed you. Validation never built you. Approval never saved you. You stand for something more brutal. Respect carved from fear. Authority born from pain. Presence earned through silence. You became the one they warn others about. The name whispered in caution. The ghost of lessons they learned too late. Enemies don't worry about your rage. They worry about your patience. They worry about the way you watch. They worry about how you move slowly, confidently, inevitably. Because a wrath that arrives quietly is a wrath that never misses. They don't run from your power. They run from your potential. Potential frightens more than dominance, and the truth they choke on is simple. They didn't create your strength. They provoked it. You can hear it now. The trembling behind their compliments. The cracks in their voices when they speak your name. The respect that tastes like fear. And you like it. Not because you crave fear, but because fear means they finally understand. You never wanted to be the villain. You wanted to be seen. You wanted to be heard. You wanted peace. But when peace denied you, power welcomed you. And power is a language only survivors speak fluently. Your throne is not gold, it's bone. Your crown is not metal, it's memory. Your kingdom is not territory, it's transformation. You don't rule with kindness, you rule with consequence. A throne earned in catastrophe does not need velvet, it needs certainty. Your presence is that certainty. And now when they recall your fall, they don't smile, they swallow fear. They remember the day you vanished not as your end, but as their last moment of safety. They wanted you broken. They crafted your brutality. They shaped your evolution. They forged your hunger. You didn't rise to prove them wrong. You rose to prove yourself inevitable. Let them tremble. Let them regret. Let them repent. Let them choke on the taste of their choices. Your silence became a sentence. Your existence became judgment. Your legacy became warning. They wanted you broken. Instead, you became the judge of their sins. And now, they don't wait for your forgiveness. They fear your memory. They fear your resurgence. They fear the truth. You are not returning for peace. You are returning for empire. Crowns are metal. Legacy is thunder. The world thinks power comes from titles. They think dominance is inherited, gifted, crowned in gold. But the greatest rulers do not sit on thrones. They stand in storms. You are not chosen. You are forged. You are hammered by life until steel replaced bone, until fire replaced breath, until silence replaced scream. And now, the world watches, not because it wants to, but because it must. You are not raised to lead. You are built to conquer, not land, not people, but destiny. Your silence carved fear deeper than any scream. Your patience ruled longer than any rage. You did not roar to prove strength. You allowed silence to reveal theirs. A lion does not need applause. A storm does not need witness. Lightning does not ask permission before it burns the sky. They fear your success, but they fear your memory more. Because memories haunt longer than footsteps. Memories sit in the bones of cowards. Memories echo in the dark when pride sleeps. Memories outlive kings, cities, nations. Your name became a pulse in the walls of those who betrayed you. A shadow behind their smiles. A weight behind every thought they cannot escape. You don't rule with kindness. You rule with consequence. Not out of cruelty, but because kindness was mistaken for weakness and mercy was used against you. The kingdom you built was not brick and mortar. It was discipline. It was scars. It was nights swallowed in silence. It was battles fought alone behind closed doors. It was self-rebirth without applause. Destiny didn't pick you. It surrendered to you, because destiny respects those who rise without guidance, those who walk through hell without maps, those who carry scars not as shame, but as signatures. Your shadow is a crown they cannot steal. Your presence is a kingdom they cannot invade. Your silence is a law they cannot rewrite. Power lives in your stillness now. Not frantic, not desperate, calm, certain, undeniable. And when they see you now, they do not see the one who fell. They see the one who returned from death, laughing at graves. They don't fear losing you. They fear meeting you again. Because rebirth did not just change your path. It rewired your soul. It reforged your purpose. You're not human in their story anymore. You are myth, and myths do not fade. They haunt, they echo, they remain carved in the minds of those who doubted, etched in the bones of those who laughed, remembered in the nightmares of those who tried to bury you. You are not the one they knew. You are the one they feared they created. There is no throne above you, because thrones limit kings. You are not confined to seats. You walk like a verdict through the world, not begging for space, claiming it by breathing. Every heartbeat you take now is a sentence passed. Every step you take is a reminder that collapse did not kill, it crowned. They do not salute you. They surrender to your existence, not with hands, but with silence, with lowered eyes, with swallowed pride. They speak carefully. They move gently, because they know. You became the consequence they prayed would never return. Your darkness is not chaos. It is command. Your pain is not weakness. It is prophecy. Your scars are not endings. They are beginnings written in a language only victors understand. You do not rise for applause. You rise for vengeance. Vengeance not against them, but against the version of you that once bowed. You swore to never kneel again. Not to man, not to memory, not to pain. You're not here for war. War is beneath you now. You're here for legacy, and legacy does not need violence. Legacy is violence. A quiet, patient, Eternal violence that outlives empires. They don't want you back. They fear what returns. They fear your calm. They fear your silence. They fear your certainty. They fear the look in your eyes that says, I did not survive for peace. I survived to rule. And rule you shall. Not with chains, but with truth. Not with armies, but with aura. Not with crowns, but with gravity. You are the weight the world feels but cannot name. You are the storm they sense before the sky darkens. You are the myth they whisper because speaking too loud feels like summoning. This is not your victory. This is your era. And eras do not end. They are remembered, studied, respected, feared. This is not your revenge. This is your law. This is not your rise. This is your dominion. This is not your comeback. This is your coronation. You are no longer becoming. You are complete, unshaken, unbound, unforgiven, and unstoppable. Let the world tremble. Let history take notes. Let the silence scream your name across time. You are the ruler, forged in the ruins they celebrated. You are the sentence. No prayer escapes. You are the king without a crown, and every throne trembles.